from your cars, but I still labour the point. You can watch, but if your camber is a 2 out of 10 on that chart, watch it all you like. It ain't going round like it, because you can have the best fingers in the world. If your camber's shit, get your car on site in the bin. It's true though, right?
Just give yourself the best chance. That's all we can keep saying to people, is give yourself the best chance, give the best preparation you can give. You know, Stuart Barber's just said he's found some whoopties in his car and he's fixed them, and he'll probably have a better race car when he goes out next time. Great, fantastic. And if you've learned what's wrong and you can replicate it to be as good again and again and again, you're only going to improve.
Yeah, and so you know, obviously on that chart there with the figures, you know, it's just giving you a good representation that, you know, you could be a 9 in some areas. Therefore, don't go near them on a practice day. But like with so many things that you do in life, you always practice the things that you're good at, because practicing things that you're bad at. You know, Mark has said the things that I hear as a coach. Mark said, I don't make decisions when I'm doing okay. What I hear is that I don't want to make a decision in case I get it wrong. So what I'm playing for is third place. Yeah, and we just about. But the reality is, and this is coach's hat on, not friend's hat on. The reality is, your ego has got to accept finishing 9th to make a decision if you're going to have the chance of finishing first. And I think that's the difficulty in performers that do really well. Do you want to keep making cuts? Do you want to keep finishing 10th? Or do you want to stick yourself out on a limb, make yourself look silly, and make a decision that could blow back in your face in an effort to actually try hard and try and push yourself a little bit? It's difficult to do that. Because
a lot of that as well is
you don't want to fail in front of your peers.
Exactly, it's the fear of failure and having the confidence to believe in yourself and believe that what you're doing is the right thing. And it's a head game at the end of the day. You know,
it is for guys like yourself. It's not for a lot of us. Yeah.
And, you know, somewhere lodged in the back of my brain is the information and the experience which would enable me to make the right decision. The weakness I have, as I mentioned earlier, is that taking that decision and being confident that it's the right one, you know, that it's that element of doubt that I feel has held me back over the years a little bit, I think.
Yeah.
But I bet you'd happily tell someone exactly what they needed to change on their car, though, Mark, wouldn't you?
I'd make a suggestion. You know, if someone came to me and said their car was doing a specific thing, I could turn around to them and say, well, maybe try this, maybe try that.
Clarity of thought without there being prejudged or the consequence.
I always feel that I know exactly what someone should do, or quite often feel I know exactly what someone should do to their car. But when it comes to doing that to my own car, I'm a bit like Mark. I tend not to mess with it because you've told me not to, Stu. And I can clearly remember you saying it. Don't mess with it. And I did an entire touring car national at Ada where I didn't change anything on the car, even though I thought to myself, oh, this needs, you know, a touch of this, a touch of that. And then, it might have been an EWS. It was something anyway. And then I did, the next day, I changed all of the stuff on the car. And it was, you know, immeasurably better. But felt scared to do it at the time. It was EWS Outdoors. We did that one race.
Yeah, James Stewart makes a point. It's also risk versus reward. You know, you'd probably be more comfortable taking that decision at a club meeting than you would at the Worlds. You know,
but that's coming down to practice. We're coming down to not just practicing setup and learning what does what on your car.
Yeah.
The contrary argument to that is at nationals, there becomes a point at a national where you're better off learning to drive a 90% car at 100% than searching for a 100% car that you've never learned to drive. So there becomes a point where you have to shut it off and say, that's the car I'm going to go with. But again, these setup things and changes, and if they're that major, they're going to take you out of the game. Those major changes should have been tried before you even got there. That's the sort of thing you should be trying at club racing, to realise that's horrid, I don't like it, and therefore I will never try that again. Or I now know that does that for me, so when I go to an event, I know I have that available to me. So a lot of testing in the old days for myself used to be, what am I going to take out of my pit bag? What options am I going to take away from myself? Not what more options am I going to give myself? It was about narrowing them down to give me one or two options I can work with, and that's all. That's what practice used to be for me.
Yeah. So, I mean, and really just to summarize, I mean, how do you get better? And for me, I think, you know, for all of us, I think you've got to have a dream. You've got to have a desire to get somewhere. If you're, you know, you've got aspirations of improving, because at the end of the day, not everyone's got aspirations, you know, like Mark, like David, like I, like Ant. But, you know, it helps. Then you've got to build your own gearbox. Then you've got to choose how many cogs apply to you or your class, and then decide how many teeth are in your cog. At that point, you've then got a structure of assessing where you're at with your RC performance. And then
no one's going to give it to you.
No
one give it in racing and in competition. Nobody's going to give it to you. You got to earn it, and you got to learn it.
And I think
I found when I was kind of coming up through the ranks, learning, certainly in my teenage years, I'd always set myself a target that was measurable and something that I felt was achievable. So, you know, once upon a time, my target was to win the B final. That's what I wanted to do, because I knew at that time I wasn't capable of putting it in the A and mixing it with the top guys. But I thought, well, I've come 4th, 5th in the B a few times, but I've never been quite good enough to win it. So my target now is going to be to win the B final. And once I'd won the B final, I thought, well, I've not really got to go a lot quicker to put it in the A. So at the next meeting, the target was make the A final.
Realistic goals.
Yeah, and that was my target until I achieved it. And then once I'd made the A final, it was okay. I want to finish on the podium now. And once I'd finished on the podium, I want to win one. Over the years, I achieved all those targets, and then it got to the point where the target became, I want to be a national champion now, and I've never achieved that. And I think now I'm a bit older. I probably don't have as much time to dedicate to the hobby as I once did. Now I turn up to a national, and I think my target is to try and win or be on the podium. You know, for me, I know deep down that over the course of a national season, I'm not going to beat an Ollie Payne or an Alex Hagberg. But I know that on my day, if I get everything right, it all comes together and I get my head in gear, I can mix it with them on the odd occasion. So I've still got to have that target to try and get up there in the top 3.
I think the only problem with that is that at each point there's going to come a goal that, like, when you talk to, let's say, you look at, again, going back to golf, or you go back to any individual sport where they set a goal and then they reach it, it then becomes really difficult to either replicate it or get consistent with it. All of a sudden they achieve their goal and then they disappear into the wilderness. I think when you're setting your goals along the way, I think that becomes really difficult for the next goal. Whereas if your aspiration was to just keep chipping away at the 150 components, as you kept on chipping away and you just worked at that, the dream would become a reality, because you're just chipping away at microorganisms, if you like, of the big picture. Because what you're thinking about is the big tree of, I need to be, or don't need to be, but I want to be a national champion. Whereas I think if you actually laid it down on a piece of paper and actually assessed, what am I good at and what am I not good at, I think you'd find a chink in your armour that would give you the opportunity to be what you want to be. And that's where I have an issue. I said, put it in there at the start. I have an issue with goals compared to dreams, because goals, all of a sudden, once you've achieved it, they become an obstacle for me. That as a coach, but
once you've achieved the goal, you set yourself a new one. Surely that's how it works.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it becomes difficult to achieve the new goal. For me personally, I think that goals become finishing lines, and I think it's then very difficult to pick yourself up and start again. Whereas if the ultimate is 10 out of 10, working towards 10 out of 10 and Spashett's 10 out of 10, once you got there, you would have achieved your dream, but you never thought about the dream. It's like when you're in a race for 8 minutes. You hear the clock go, 30 seconds or a minute to go. Now you're thinking about a minute. Whereas if you thought about, I've got to do well at the next national and the next national, well, this becomes just part of the process of getting there. And then when you win your next world championship, you're thinking about the next world championship. So there is never a finishing line. It's always about working on those cogs and those components that allow you to achieve along the way.
You've got to, I agree, you've got to break it down. So an example would be, I was fortunate enough to win that Sport A final at the Chesterfield National this year. Dave managed to bin it early doors, which made it a lot easier for me. But I was driving around in the lead of that race, and as soon as the tone came on to say the running order at 6 minutes is, in my head I thought, well, it's about a 12-second lap. So I've got to drive 10 laps without hitting anything now. So in my head, I'd set myself that goal. It was like, if I do 10 laps without touching anything, I've won.
Yeah.
Whereas that's a much smaller thing you can compartmentalise, as opposed to before the start of the race, you think, okay, I've got to drive 50 laps without crashing. That's much harder to achieve. But if you can break it down into smaller bits.
David said last week about, you go, just don't crash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
David, but there is also a feeling if you're in a position where the car is really good and you're confident in driving it, it is possible, and it's only happened once in a blue moon for me. Maybe every year or two, I'll get a car and I'll be in a position where it happens, where you think just don't crash, but also subconsciously you're not going to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's the same for Dave when he won his most recent world title in 2006. He had like a 5-6 second lead over the second place guy in the third leg of the final, and over the course of the last 2-3 minutes of the race, John Orr, this guy's just catching him. And I said to Dave after, I was like, you realise he was catching you? He goes, yeah, but he wouldn't have actually caught me. He said, I was driving at speed that would allow him to catch me up but not get close enough. Yeah. And Dave knew that he wasn't going to crash.
Yeah, incredible car control. But so just, obviously I'm conscious that time is kicking on, and Dave loves his Horlicks before bedtime. Those that watched last week. Mark, you weren't here last week. You were off down the pub. But no, you can't have been down the pub. But anyway, so just to sort of round up, so improvement cycle is key. You've got to repair it, i.e. practice days, then you've got to train it. Practice days can be club meets, if you so choose, or days with the boys and just working on your car and on the components and in the cog, and then then training. You've got to load it, you've got to test it at like West Kent and club meets and stuff like that, and then match could be your regional, national, Euros and Worlds and all that kind of stuff. But I think that it's really difficult job for you, Dave, when people come to your table and they say, I need to go faster. And I think that's the real difficulty as someone that's that supports the national series, and with the shop, Zen Racing is a 12 scale specialist and obviously 8 scale as well. But to try and just because you've been super uber good, it's so difficult to give people these nuggets that are actually going to find those extra tenths on the track that they're after.
Yeah, it is really. Without knowing their whole picture, it's very difficult to put their pieces of their puzzle together for them. The standing joke in our little group of people, if someone comes to me and just says, I'm not fast enough, I'm afraid they get the cheeky answer, then put a big opinion on it, because that's talentless. But come to me and say the car does this or that, how do I improve it? That's a totally different question. And unfortunately, not mind reader, we need that information from the driver to be able to improve them and help them as best we possibly can. So again, understanding what they're doing, understanding what you're doing yourself before you ask a question is very important.
Yeah, certainly just what do you, something that you've always said, what do you need the car to do? That's
what do you want to do? Yeah.
You
tell me what you want, and I'll help you achieve your goal.
Yeah.
I also get asked, you've asked me a couple of things before, tyre questions and stuff, and you've asked me about tyres, and I've tried them, and you've said, what's the difference? And I've said, well, to me, nothing. I went the same speed. They felt completely different, but to me, it goes the same speed. You needed to ask me a different question. Well, why were they different? And I'd have given you a different answer. And that's not us being difficult. We're just answering the question that we think you've asked. You have to be more specific.
Any nuggets from you, Anne, that you can pass on?
The only thing that I think we've missed out is the building of the kit. So David said, Ollie would build the kit exactly like his race car. I think that not so much in 12th scale, although there are aspects of it that really need attention. But the Yokomo was a fine example with the top arms on the yoke, right? They were bound up out the box, and the balls needed polishing, and you needed to do this, that, and the other. Reaming of suspension arms. There's a whole modelling aspect to it that I think is totally missed. And people that are good at building cars, just simple things like having the arms dropping under their own weight. You see some guys touring cars that are just completely jammed up. So I think that's possibly something we should try and get some info out to people.
Yeah, I mean, and really, tonight has been about. I try to make it a catalyst that we can expand on these conversations for you, David, in terms of those cogs. Going back to me, cogs. Expanding on that and making people go, look, I'm really battling with XYZ in cog, whatever it is. Help me. You know what I mean? Because I think at that point, I'm at bloody 3 at camber. Help me. Why can't I measure my camber? I bloody do. Show me. You know what I mean? And that's that sort of thing. And I think, guys need to ask the questions. But as you rightly said, they need the right questions. And they need to know how they're going to get from over here to over here. And I think that's the real difficulty, isn't it? I mean,
yes, it is.
Is so difficult in any walk of life. And when you've got a puzzle that's, way back when, kits that you needed to get the Dremel out and chisel a bit of this off and a bit of that off. That's a whole new, back in the day, right? that's the way they used to be. At least now everything sort of fits, right?
I don't know. Did you not use a Dremel for your Shoemaker?
Have I got a shoe? Yes, I have got. I don't. Well, it's. I've got it always on the kit.
Oh yeah, of course, Shoemaker driver.
That's a horrible dig. I love my Shoemaker, but I also like all the other cars I've driven too. Where was I going with that? Yeah. So I think the catalyst is of being able to give people at least a direction of what are they weak at, and therefore, can they bring a question to us of, can you explain this, that, and the other? And I'd really encourage people to do that. Would be give us something to give you the details of. Yeah.
You've got a week.
Yeah.
People that I can't see how many people are logged on. I don't know if we have a lot or a few or how many.
We've had the most we've had ever tonight.
So you have 1 week. I'll log on again next week with you guys. Let's answer questions next week from you. You pose the questions. Stu can flip the screen so I can see your pit bench. So if you're working on tweak or balance and you're stuck with something, I can watch online. Brilliant. And then I can just put that weight there, or let's try this, or let's do this. Work through your problem. We can't spend hours on it, of course. I need my Horlicks at 10. But we will go through as many questions as we possibly can. Let's do that next week.
Yeah. This is you've got the opportunity to pick the brains of a 4.5 times world champion. What better way to spend your Thursday evening during these times? So, Dave, once again, huge thanks to you for being here, and everyone else. Mark Stiles, thank you for your time. Really appreciate that, buddy. And of course, my co-presenter, Ant Lockyer. Anything to add, Ant, before we shoot off?
No. I need to go to bed.
So for everyone, check out the YouTube channel that we're now up and running on. It's connected with Zen Racing as well. They've got a YouTube channel. got the podcast Facebook page, and we got the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, and Google Play. We are out there. Share this stuff. Let's get this community buzzing and really strong for when we're ready to get back racing. Love to you all, and thanks for all your time. And we'll see you all next week, 8:30 Thursday. Be there.
Stay safe, everyone.
Cheers, guys.